This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
One of the greatest things you can do for the overall quality of your life and maintaining excellent health throughout your lifetime is exercising. And for me, my exercise of choice is running. Hi, I'm Carl Gruber, the author of the short ebook, The Jogger to Runner book. I've been a runner for over 40 years, and I've completed 78 marathons. Now, running is my passion, and that is why I wrote this short, concise, and easy-to-use ebook to help you become a runner too. So if you're now walking or just slowly jogging but have the desire to begin running, the Jogger to Runner book is now available for just $1.99. Just scan the QR code you see on the screen now to get your copy. You don't have to run a marathon or even race, just run for the joy of it and run for a better quality of life. That's the Jogger to Runner book. Get your copy today. Hey everyone, welcome once again to World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment. I'm your host, Carl Gruber. Now, we live in a world where things change and evolve at lightning speed, and this show is the place to find some solace and peace as we dive deep into all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening. Now, in doing so, we help you to gain some understanding of all that lays beyond the veil of this 3D world. Now, since 2018, this has been our mission, and here on episode number 165, we continue for our search for truth, love, light, and peace. So with that, let me introduce to you our featured guest. That is Heather Eck. Heather is a modern artist, mystic, author, and spiritual teacher. She founded Heather Eck Studios to share joy, beauty, and wisdom, embodying her spirituality through painting and spiritual teaching, which I find fascinating. She has been on a spiritual quest for joy and purpose over a decade and has several awakening experiences since her early 20s. Now, she's a certified visionary art therapist who teaches therapeutic art classes. And Heather is a creative conduit who believes artists are channelers of the divine and that we are connected. She created her work through channeling, and her work is deeply rooted in spiritual and biblical themes and imparts joy, beauty, and wisdom in the most authentic expression of her soul. I love all of this. So with that, welcome, Heather, to World Awakenings.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here with you today.
Well, yeah, and I'm really thrilled to have you here. What you do is really unique. And before we dive into everything, let me check in with you. When did your connection to the spirit world and the higher realms kick in your life, and why?
Honestly, I feel like it kicked in when I was really young. I was always that kid that was like super curious about the mysteries of the universe. My dad had this book called like The Mysteries of the Unexplained. I feel like it was one of those Time Life books back in the day, but I would just pore over that book and I was just so fascinated by the things of the world that had no explanation, or there were just, those things that, well, it just is what it is. And so I grew up very curious about religion. I grew up very curious about spirituality, and that has never left me. It's just kind of always been a part of me, probably since I was 7 or 8, I
Wow.
think.
Wow.
Mhm.
I think, geez, all I wanted to do then was play baseball. What? You know.
I was like that weird hippie kid. My parents always told me I was born in the wrong decade, that I should have been around in the 60s. I should have been at Woodstock. I should have been, somebody then that got to experience some of that.
Well, then you can live vicariously through me because I was a hippie. I grew up in that time. It was I had a good time, so they tell me.
I love it.
So evidently, colors take on a spiritual meaning and reality for you. How so?
Yeah, so I can see and sense color around people in their, I guess, sort of like an aura. I'm also in spaces. I have something called synesthesia, which means that my senses get crossed when I take in a scent or food or music or something. And I associate the color that I see with the chakra system. So every color holds a meaning for me that's based on either your spiritual, physical, emotional energies, and that's how I kind of read color around people.
Is that kind of strange, maybe like the first time you meet somebody and you see a aura of color around them?
Yeah, that is something that started happening to me when I was working still in an office in a corporate role in human resources. And people would come into my office and stand there and I'd start to see color kind of billow out around their heads and I was like, "What's happening? What is this about?" But it is something that I think has been with me. I just sort of either blocked it or ignored it, or and it came back at a time where I really needed something more in my life. I think I had sort of stepped off the path of spirituality for a little bit, and that was like, get back on. You're meant to do something different. You're not meant to be in HR for the rest of your life.
So yeah, I'm guessing that was kind of the motivation. You left the corporate world and took a deep dive into this color therapy stuff you do.
I did. I took like a running leap off a cliff. Yeah, the net is still there. I'm still falling. But yeah, it was definitely something that had kind of bubbled up to the surface for me. I was at this point where I felt like, no amount of sleep or vacation was going to revitalized me. I was tired, my spirit was tired. And I think it was that I had just been doing what everybody thought I should be doing, not what I wanted to be doing. And the minute I sort of stepped on the path of art and sort of started to let the woo flag fly a little bit, things start to kind of make more sense to me. And I was like, this is it for me. I have to figure out how to make this work.
Wow, the woo flag. I got to get one of those and hang them out in front of me. But yeah, and that's interesting. I think many of us go through that point in our life where I just can't do this anymore. What do I really want to follow my passion? But unfortunately, we both know way too many people who just go to the end of their life just doing what wasn't their purpose, and
Mhm.
that's not good for their being.
No, no, it's so true. I think we all kind of get caught up in that place of doing what we think we should be doing instead of doing what feels good to us or what we're innately curious about. And I think that there's gifting in that. I think there's a gift or a purpose in the things that we have a curiosity about or that we have this natural pull to want to explore. And I think a lot of us just ignore that or we sort of push it aside and say later, 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 and not everyone gets that later. So I didn't want to be that person. I wanted to move forward in purpose, and I wanted to be able to use this gift in service of myself and in service of other people because it was missing for me. I felt like it was missing, and until art came back into my life, I had this like sadness around me.
Well, and I think many people in that situation, they feel the pull to their life purpose, but they use the financial excuse. But I got kids I got to feed and all this, blah, blah, blah. And how am I going to pay the bills? And it's like you or whoever takes that leap. You have to take that leap and have faith that your passion and purpose are going to blossom.
Yeah, yeah, and it's true, right? Like, we look for that paycheck, we look for the 401k, we look for the things that are going to give us a sense of stability, and then we get that, and we go, "Why am I not happy with this? What's going on here?" And I'm fortunate in that I'm married, and so I have a partner who can help support our family. But at the same time, I feel like if I hadn't taken that leap of faith, I don't know what would have happened to me spiritually, physically, emotionally, because I just felt like there needed to be something else to aim for outside of financial, um, stability, quote unquote. I needed something more for sure.
Well, where I'm looking behind you, gee, it looks like you're in an art studio.
I am. Excuse the mess. My studio is always sort of in the
Ah,
middle of a million different projects.
is that a picture of Prince behind you?
Yes, it is. That photo of Prince was or painting was done by a really good friend of mine who's also an artist. Um,
Wow.
yeah, we love Prince.
So, when and how did it first occur to you the symbiotic relationship between colors, chakras, and the healing? I mean, was there a specific incident?
It's funny. I think when I look back at my life, I realize that all along, I think there have been seeds planted that have sort of led me on this path. For example, like in college, I would dabble in meditation and I would kind of understand the chakras a little bit. And then I would go, oh, okay, this is interesting. What's this about? I would explore Reiki. I would kind of do little things that would inform, me spiritually about different tools and modalities that were out there. When I started to see the color billow out around people's heads, it was like I instantly knew that that color that I saw was associated with the chakras. And then as I would start to talk to somebody and say, hey, here's what I see for you. I've got this pale green and this dark green. Is there something happening in your heart center that makes you feel this way? And I would get that affirmation back that I started to connect the dots and say, this is associated with a physical, emotional, or spiritual sort of wound or pain that someone's going through, and the color's intended to help them heal. So the color offers them a way to move through that pain or that wound, and look for healing in a different way that maybe they hadn't thought about before. So it kind of all happened at the same time, and as I've gotten more and I think your gifts grow. And I think over the last couple of years, as I've been really leaning into doing color readings and portraits for people, that I've started to realize this shade of green means this, or this shade of pink means this, or this symbol that showed up means this. And I'm able to tell a story to somebody about where maybe they're dwelling in their body or their spirit, and then to offer them some sort of like a prescriptive color that will, here's your prescription. You need to wear orange to help lift your mood and to help you feel better if you're kind of dwelling in a grief space.
That is very cool. I mean, most people, or at least some people, are aware of something called Carillion photography, where they can actually see a person's aura color and how big the aura is. I remember my parents are both gone now, but I remember my parents went out to visit my hippie brother in California, and they went to a hippie festival, and my mom had the Carillion photo, and so I'm guessing specific colors are associated with specific moods or energies. My mom's was bright red.
Oh.
What is that? Does that mean, or would you have to know the person?
No, I think so. The aura color is slightly different than the chakra color. When I see red around somebody, that to me means they dwell in their root chakra. So they might be somebody who spends a lot of time thinking about their sense of stability, or their financial security, or maybe there are relationships in their life that they don't feel as supported or strong in. And so that's sort of where I see somebody dwelling. On the aura side, I think it's slightly different. And I don't really read the aura necessarily. I kind of read the color. But auras are something that I'm learning more about, and they're fascinating to me.
Yeah, yeah, they are to me. Know a lot more than me. But do you have any stories, dramatic healings of your clients who have had personally with them working with your color therapy?
Yeah, I have a really good friend of mine. We kind of joke and call her the largest private collector in America. She's got a fair number of my paintings. And when I first started painting a couple of years ago, it had to have been in like 2018 or 2019. I was doing a portrait for her. And when I started to pour the colors out, I felt this like overwhelming sense of sadness and also relief, because I started to cry a little bit. And she was on her way over to my house, and she pulled up and got out of her car and came over to me and said, I don't know why, but on my way over here, I just started to cry for no reason. So there was this sort of like something that was happening where we shared this connection of release from her piece. And over the years, her colors have shifted from very pale to very bright and vibrant, where there may have been a lack of something in her life or what she was going through when she was in a like a grief space, to somebody who's now open and shares their heart and welcomes in love at a higher level. So things have really improved for her over time. And my favorite part about that story is that at one point I did a painting for her that had a dog in it. And just a few short months after I did that painting for her, she had adopted a new dog. So it was sort of welcoming a new form of love into her life, which I just love so much.
Well, I'm just curious. So obviously you were an artist earlier in life, right? And
Mhm.
so when did it click to you the association of colors, healing, and therapy when you were an artist? I'm sure when you were first started painting, you didn't have that idea. You didn't make that connection.
I didn't. I was somebody who as a kid was very, very creative. I minored in art in college, but I didn't set about on the path of art. I set about on human resources and went a totally different direction. And so for a while, art had left my life.
Mm.
And I was sort of trying to pick at little creative things that I felt were going to make me feel better, dabble in little Etsy shops and little things like that. But it wasn't until I started working with a spiritual teacher who sat down and said, "Okay, let's look at you. Like what were you like as a kid? What were you interested in? Because your gifts show up for you when you're young. A lot of times when you look at little kids, they have curiosities or interests in things that are part of their gifting here. And I'm watching that now with my son, which is so interesting too, now that I've been able to kind of like hindsight's 2020, right? So you look back and go, oh, what's happening there? Um, so for me, when we talked about that and we talked about creative expression being part of my gifting, it was like a light bulb went off and I went, oh my gosh. Okay. So art was always there. And then as I was sort of moving down the path of developing more spirituality and developing more of a discipline of spirituality, that I said, okay, these two things go together for me. And it was like that little moment of, I understand now why I've always been attracted to color. I was always somebody who, would notice things in movies and TV and go, wait, everybody in this scene is wearing maroon. What does that mean? Or things that nobody else would notice that I would kind of hone in on and go, there's something interesting happening here. And then put the two together and then started to do spirit portraits for people where I was actually doing a one-on-one reading of their color and painting their portrait and then telling a story to them about what was happening. That then it kind of started to click. And then I started to kind of realize, okay, this is the thing, that this is what I do. I read color and I paint portraits and tell you a beautiful story about what your radiant spirit is trying to tell you.
And the really cool thing about when you're doing that, and I find this when I'm doing something that is my purpose and my passion, is you're just in the flow. You feel like everything is just coming through you, like the divine is working through you because you came here and it's your life purpose. And it's almost like when I write, I just sit down and a lot of times I don't even know what I'm going to write and just all of a sudden, blah, 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 30 pages later, go, where'd that come from? Your painting is like that.
Yeah, it is. You're right. I think there are times, you probably know this too. If you sit down to write and you try to force out pages, it feels awful, right? You're like, I don't want to do this today. Or you write something and then you come back to it and you're like, this doesn't make any sense to me at all. It's the same way for me in painting. I tried to paint this morning and I couldn't connect. Something wasn't working right with it. And I said, I'm trying too hard. I'll come back to it another time. That I really have to get my ego out of the way and just let it be what it is and let it come through me instead of trying to control it. And then I feel like that's the divine working through me, as clearly and cleanly as possible, I hope.
Absolutely. Well, can anyone access their spiritual connection to their higher self using colors?
I think they can. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that people are not aware of that I would love to try to educate more of is that think about when you were a kid too, right? Like everybody wanted to talk about what their favorite colors were. What's your favorite color? Mine's blue. What's yours? Mine's red. We're attracted to color. We're repelled by certain colors. We choose colors for our home. We choose colors for our offices or our closets, and we want to wear them because they make us feel good. But there's something in that color that's offering you something. It's either ministering to a need for something or it's showing you that there's a need for something. And so if you're somebody who always wears black, for example, I know when I choose a black shirt out of my closet that I'm hiding from something or I'm looking for protection from something. And if I really get still and think about it, I can figure out what it is. Versus if I want to wear something bright magenta or vibrant, then I know I'm looking for something that's going to make me feel really affirmed today. Something's going to make me feel really confident and happy and optimistic. So there's definitely a hidden like a hidden language to color that we can learn to speak. And then I think that helps us learn more about ourselves and what it is that we're here to do.
So yeah, I'm thinking, my favorite colors are I like I like orange, red, but I also like brown for
Mhm.
natural colors, natural earth. I like earth tones, but I like the orange and the red type of stuff too,
Yeah.
and purple.
And
Yeah.
purple, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. I feel like oranges and reds are 2 colors of the physical body. You have the root, which is red, and you have the orange, which is sacral, and those 2 colors are very grounding. They help us feel rooted and supported. You mentioned before you used to run marathons too, and that's spending a lot of time outside. You probably feel energized in nature. So those colors help you feel strongly supported and give you the freedom to be creative and expressive, which is really cool. And then the purple is what connects us to a higher power or our intuition or our connection to God's source, whatever that the language is that you use for that. And that is where you feel like you are part of the collective and you are able to see yourself as one of, we're all connected and we are all one. So it's nice that you're sort of grounded in both the upper chakras and the lower chakras.
Well, this is so cool because most people don't even think of this stuff at
Yeah,
all. Oh, I just like blue.
yeah.
It appeals to me. And you just kind of touched on this a little bit just now. What's the relationship between the colors and the human chakra system? I think you said certain colors are associated with certain energy chakras.
Mhm. Yeah, so each energy center is associated with a physical, emotional, a spiritual aspect. So if you take the heart, for example, the heart, it's the energy center of the heart chakra sits at the heart level, and that's responsible for our sense of self-love, compassion, forgiveness, acceptance. But it also governs the physical heart, right? So if you're somebody who has high blood pressure, for example, you might have some anger in your body. And so you might need to find ways to express that anger, get that anger out because it's impacting the heart and how it functions. And so you may be somebody who needs to sort of ground themselves in peace and calm so that you can calm that energy down so that you can slow the heart rate and you can kind of find a place of ease. And so you might want to work with colors that are calming, like soft blues or soft greens that will help to calm the energy down and to help heal that heart center. But there also might be, if you are somebody who's dealing with some anger, working through that, where's that anger coming from? Where does that stem from? And are there ways that you can sort of move through that are healthy, that allow you to come to a place of peace or acceptance about things that are just generally kind of moving on around you or within you.
I think too, it's pretty well known that if you paint your living space in a certain color, that one can be calming, one can be peaceful, some can, without even realizing, they may paint it and feel chaotic or off in their energy too, if they're not paying attention to that.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I have a friend who she put the color red in one of her boys' rooms and she put the color orange in another one of her boys' rooms. And I was like, oh, I don't know, those aren't really the best colors for little boys' rooms because that red is going to spark some
Mm.
fiery energy. And then that orange, well, orange naturally, if you think about like Cheetos, Doritos, those kinds of snacks, they make you hungry. So
Yeah.
there's like these unintended sort of like consequences to color. So we chose blues and greens because we were like, let's just calm it down. So it's interesting. You can really, really kind of dive into the colors that you have in your space and what they mean and how you are either intentionally bringing energy in or you're, not aware of the energy you're inviting in just based on the color that you chose that day.
Well, that reminds me, in the height of my hippie days, I was sharing an apartment with some guys, and I painted my bedroom all chocolate brown walls with bright orange trim on all of them. No, it was a pretty wild and crazy time in my life, so I'm sure those colors reflect.
Right? That feels very like 70s to me too, orange and brown together.
Yes, it was. So, what about you? I mean, has painting and working with colors brought any specific healings in your own life?
Yeah, I think it has for sure. When I sit down to do a portrait for somebody, there is just as much healing for me as there is for them. I think anytime that we are working with somebody, we're mirroring or reflecting back to one another. So I know if I'm working with somebody whose colors are blue and it means that they need to use their voice more, they have to have conversations about something, then I often look back at myself and go, okay, so what does that mean for you today? What's coming up for you? Because I think that, um, like I said, we reflect and we mirror for each other things that are going on in our lives. So I try to pay attention to that and then work through my own stuff. We all have things we have to work through and figure out, um, and so it's helpful for me to just kind of understand what is being shown to me, because I feel like it's all a message.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, you definitely, like myself, are a student of spirituality. So let's explore your relationship with spirituality. What is your definition of that word, and what role does spirituality play in your own life?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I sort of think that my spirituality is my connection to God or higher power. I really, when I was younger, wanted to explore all the religions.
Yeah.
I would try to get invited to go to church or synagogue or anywhere, anybody who would take me with them to kind of go, what's happening in this church or what's happening here and what are we learning? And what I learned for myself was that I didn't really think that it mattered where you went or what you wore or what was covered. What really mattered was your conversation with God or a higher power. So for me, that's what I really focus on is my daily conversation with God. That's the God of my understanding, is to have that conversation, is to pray, is to meditate and try to not make any decisions, but to sort of let my path be charted by how my day goes and to be open to whatever is coming my way. I'm sort of like I wouldn't say like a weird person, but I sort of dabble in the space of being a student of, I see a Course in Miracles behind you. I'm a student of the Course in Miracles.
Just going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yep. Student of the Bible. I'm in kindergarten in both of these, by the way. And then also a student of the chakras and a student of yoga and a student of, so all these things to me, I think are part of my spirituality and what gives me, I think, the ability to look at things with a really open mind and a really pure heart and just say, are you being a good person? Are you helping people? Are you reaching your hand back to pull people along and to help them, move up out of places where they might feel alone? And being able to offer that sense of kindness to people. That to me is what it means to be a spiritual person.
Yeah, that's a really good explanation of that, especially from your personal space too. Um, it's interesting too because you mentioned that when you are doing color therapy healing, that you're also healed too. Now, this is one of the basic spiritual principles that as we give, we receive right back. Um, I know my viewers and listeners are very familiar that I'm a facilitator of a big Power of Eight Healing Facebook group with 1,700 people around the world, based on Lynn McTaggart's studies on eight or more people come together, and we focus healing on a person, place, or thing. That the people who are intending healing actually receive healing themselves. It's called a rebound effect, and that is a universal truth.
I love that. I love that. I do think that's true. I think that's 100% true. I think especially because your intention is to offer healing. So you're giving it out, right? And I think that that's what we're here to do. And my teacher says too that, your gift comes in from source or God, the universe, and it goes out in service. It's meant to come in and go out. And I think that's the biggest thing is we're here to help each other. And when we offer each other that safe space of healing, we also receive it. And that's so important. That's really beautiful. I love that.
And I think too, people need to realize that if everything you give out is received back, well, that also happens when you do so in without good intentions.
Yes.
So
Yep.
you
I'm
wonder,
laughing because I'm
why did I get in a car accident? Why does that person hate me? Well, what did you give out?
right. I spend sometimes part of my day going cancel, clear, delete. If I have a thought that's negative or or I say something I didn't intend, I'm like, no, 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 no. That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. I'm gonna say only positive things.
Too, it's I've told many people, it's not like I no longer have judgmental thoughts. I mean, I do get judgmental thoughts, but it's more like sitting at a railroad crossing. They call the Doppler effect. As the train goes by, you like that, and I'll have this judgmental thought, and it just goes by, and boy, that guy's really an idiot, and I just, okay, thank you for being here. I'm not accepting it. I may have that thought, but I don't grasp onto the judgmental thought.
Yes.
It's not always like that, but I've gotten better and better at that.
Yeah, it's a practice, right? I think that's the thing that's most important is it's a it's a moment to moment practice. I was going to say it's a daily practice, but honestly, I think it's a moment to moment practice sometimes of if I have that judgmental thought or like you said you're driving something, if I have that negative thought, I go, "Okay, let me offer a blessing. Let me offer a blessing to somebody and say I hope that person's day gets better for them," right? They're going through something I have no idea what it is. They just cut me off. Maybe they didn't realize it. Maybe they're in a bad mood. Maybe they have to go to the bathroom. Who knows what it is? But I'm going to offer them a blessing that they get there safely. And that's a moment to moment practice for me.
Well, I'd like to go back talking a little bit more about A Course in Miracles. Now, I've had some of the world's greatest teachers of A Course in Miracles. I've had Gary Renard on here, who is one of the best teachers in the world, and I've had Dove Fishman and Dr. John Mundy and Maria Felipe, and on and on and on. And I had Dr. Bob Rosenthal, the late Bob Rosenthal, who was on my show 3 or 4 years ago. He was co-chairman of the Foundation of Inner Peace that publishes the ACIM, A Course in Miracles. But A Course in Miracles, how did it come into your life in the first place? Me, I know I just heard Dr. Wayne Dyer talking about it. I went and bought a book.
Oh, that's so cool. For me, honestly, it came in sort of accidentally at a bookstore one time. I think I walked in and I saw it off to the right and I was like, what is this? And I kind of felt magnetically drawn to it. I think that's when I bought my first copy. And then I studied it as part of a group years and years later. So it was like it resurfaced back in. And it's something that I refer back to all the time. I have a little, looks like the frame tipped over, but I have a little frame on the back of my work desk there that says, um, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. That is so powerful to me. And there are little pieces of it that I go back to pretty regularly just to kind of like ground myself in that. It's fascinating.
Well, what you just stated there, that quote is actually right, like on the title page, just before page one. It says, "Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God."
Right.
And that is all based on, the teaching of A Course in Miracles is non-dualism. We live in a dualistic world of the ego where there's good and bad and, and love and fear. But non-dualism at home with Source, there's only unconditional love and peace. That's it. There's nothing else. And in this world, that's so hard for people to wrap that around their head.
Yep. Yep. It is.
And actually, the book, for those of people, those few people, I mean, hundreds of millions of people now study A Course in Miracles. It was scripted in the early to mid 1970s by Dr. Helen Schuckman in New York City, and she was Jewish, and it came through in the voice of Jesus, but it's got nothing to do with religion. It's
Right.
pure non-dualistic spirituality. And you know, you mentioned earlier when you were younger, you wanted to go to every church and see what learn all the religions. Well, religion and spirituality are completely different.
Yep. Yep. I think that I had to experience that to sort of find my way to spirituality. I think the thing I always contended with was this idea that religion was man-made and that spirituality was God-made. It was like I needed, and I felt so disconnected from religion because of that. I felt like, well, who made that up? Well, what is that about? And how did that come to be? And but why? And who changed this? And how did they? And so even my little like 10-year-old mind was trying to figure out why that made sense, and it never made sense. And so when I found A Course in Miracles, when I found the Bible, when I found all these things, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. It was never really supposed to be about a religion, so to speak. And then I found comfort in that. And then that made me feel like, okay, now I can move on.
Yeah, Jesus wasn't even a Christian. They just made a religion out of
Right.
what he taught. But yeah, it sounds to me like you had a similar upbringing like I did. I grew up in a household where we never went to church. God was not even mentioned. It was an agnostic household, although I know my mom was a believer, but very private about it. But I never had a particular religion or doctrine shoved down my throat, so I was a blank slate. So then when I did come to these teachings and these doctrines, I was able to pick it up what seemed good to me.
Right. Yep. Yeah, we did. We went to vacation Bible school when we were kids, and so there was a little bit of that. And I would ask, what religion are we? And my mom would say, well, we're Methodists. And I thought, oh, okay, I wonder why we're Methodists. It was always kind of like I just kind of wanted to know what that meant. And so, yeah, I really was sort of a blank slate. I did a lot of, I still do. I listen to everything I can listen to. I read, I research. I just try to I have this like innate curiosity, this like insatiable curiosity about the world. So I'm constantly like digging through stuff to learn more.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a life journey for both of us, and I'm sure many people
Hmm.
listening here. So we're speaking with Heather Eck, an amazing artist who uses color and painting for healing therapies. Now, tell us. I was looking at your your web page, and you've got some workshops that you do, and how can they help a person who participates in your workshops?
Yeah, so the workshops are fairly new for me. There's something I've wanted to do for a long time where I'm trying to bring people together in a safe space where you can explore yourself and your things that you might be going through emotionally or spiritually through color and through the chakras. So this coming Thursday actually we're doing a workshop on the root chakra and the color red. So I'm trying to kind of create the space where we're using art, meditation, journaling, and to be able to explore ourselves a bit more and just understand how that root chakra, how that color red influences our lives in different ways, and how we can work with it to release emotional blocks, to unlock our creativity, and to live our lives more intentionally, and to create like healthier, happier selves.
Are you doing these workshops live or virtually or both?
They are live and virtual. So we'll be doing them over Zoom.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, very, very interesting. I also saw that you have a number of journals that you have created that are available on Amazon. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah. So each month I create a new calendar print I call it my monthly calendar club. So whatever new work I've created that month, I turn into a calendar print for people. And whatever print I've chosen for that month, I then create a journal for and list it on Amazon. So those journals are, the 5 by 7 lined journals. You can take some notes in or do, doodling or whatever it is that sets your heart on fire. But I love to do that for people because it gives them a way to connect to a piece of art that maybe they feel called to, but also to let that print or that painting minister to them all throughout the month too.
Yeah, and anybody who's interested, all I did was go to Amazon, click on books, and typed your name in, and they all came up.
I'm so glad to hear that.
So, do you have any ambitions, or are you working on a book about what you do too?
I am. I'm working on a book about color and how color works in our lives. And I'm working on a course called Amplify Your Inner Rainbow, which is all about using color and art and different modalities to help you find alignment and peace in your life. And I have all sorts of other aspirations. The world is my oyster. I'm constantly brainstorming new ideas and having to say, no, 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 finish this one first. Finish this one first.
Well, that's great. Well, at least you're not bored. I like that.
I really don't stop moving. I need to sit down.
Well, I would like to go back for a moment and talk more about how you channel your art. How exactly does that work when you're working with colors and painting?
hmm So if I'm working with somebody individually, one on one, I'm looking at a photo or I'm looking at something that I've worked on with them before, like a picture or something, and I will meditate on their energy. And I will sort of in my mind, as I read through their chakras and the colors and the symbols that are coming through for me and write those down. And then as I get prepared to do their painting, I'm kind of looking at what are the 2 to 3 colors that are coming through for that person and starting their painting based on those colors. And as I'm doing the painting, I'm closing my eyes because I'm doing the painting in my mind. As I'm doing that painting, then I'm receiving messages about it, or I'm seeing shapes or forms in the way that the paint is moving that tells me different things that might be going on with them. And everything that sort of happens from the beginning of the painting until the end is part of that. So the number of drops that fall in the ink or the shape that the alcohol will make on the page is telling me something about it. And I'm writing all of that down. And then once the painting is complete, I will let it sit and dry. And then when we schedule a Zoom call where I will get on a Zoom with you and show you your painting and tell you all about it, I will read the painting again another time before we meet to see, was there anything new? Is there anything special that I can see in the piece? And then share all of that with you over Zoom. And then if I'm doing just a painting for myself in the studio or just kind of working through something, it will just kind of be me reading whatever energy is coming through that day. That might be about something I've just read. It might be about something that's happening in the world. It could just be how I'm feeling that day. And that will come through in that canvas too.
So you don't always paint specifically for a client. I mean, sometimes you just have something that wants to come through and you paint it for yourself.
Yeah, I kind of think of those as like commissions for people I haven't met yet.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
It could have just been your higher self here, Heather. You need to release this.
Yes, that's exactly right. I think that's what a lot of it is. And then somebody might go to it and go, "What? I really love that painting.
Yeah.
What's in there?" And then I'll be able to tell them what came through and see if they kind of connect to the energy of what came through for that piece too.
What modality do you work in? Oil?
Acrylic.
Acrylic. Oh,
hmm
so I'm not a painter, but I think that's very cool. The other thing too, I saw on your website, you're described as being a mystic. How so?
I think mystics are people who just have this desire to understand and explore as much of the world and the unseen as possible. Somebody who offers teaching and wisdom and who shares what they know in ways that help people grow spiritually.
Okay, yeah. I think there's a lot of different terms of mystic and that type of thing. I just recently had a shaman on, and,
Uh-huh.
and that's quite a different avenue. I mean, he's a mystic and being a shaman, but wow, maybe you're a shaman of colors.
Oh, I love that. I have some friends who are shamans as well, and they are it's funny how our gifting overlaps quite a bit. They're working with the chakras just as much as I am. We're just doing it in different ways, but there is overlap in that too. It's really powerful.
Do you think anyone can connect to their higher self just using color, even if they don't realize it?
I do. Yeah, I definitely do. I think that, I've done workshops in the past where I'll have someone write down what it is that they want to release from their life. What is it that you want to let go of? Choose a color that represents that thing. And I think people are naturally sort of intuitively drawn to colors for particular reasons. And if they say, I want to let go of, I want to let go of this belief that I have about myself, and they chose the color yellow, then they are connecting to their sense of identity, and they maybe didn't even know it, but it's still part of their experience. So I think when people start to understand color and they understand how it's communicating to them, they absolutely are connected to their higher selves for sure.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, what can a person who is right now watching or listening to you at home do right now to implement color therapy and healing in their life, and where's a good place to start? And I guess, like you said, just kind of gravitate to what you're drawn to.
Yeah, I think a lot of times I'll start with saying, what color are you wearing today? What
Oh,
color did you put on today? How does that color make you feel? If you were to kind of close your eyes and think about it, what are three things that that color offers you today? And then look it up. I have a free color and chakra guide on my website that people can get, so they can kind of look up, what if I'm wearing pink? What does pink mean? Where's that fall on the chakras? What's that color about? And does it make sense for me, right? Like if I'm wearing pink today, pink's about the heart chakra. Does it make sense to me that I would want to convey and attract higher love energy today? And I would say, yes, it does. Yeah, for sure.
well, I'm going to have to check that out. Uh-oh, I think I wore a black shirt today. I'm in trouble.
You're okay. You're okay.
Um, so give us an idea. Tell us about some of the workshops you're doing right now.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you. I'm doing a monthly workshop that's all about, I call it Colorize Your Life. And that workshop will change each month depending on what the energy of, the collective energy is, or sort of how I feel. We're starting with the root chakra and the color red. And so we'll dive into some therapeutic art exercises so that you can understand more about yourself and how to live a healthier, happier, more intentional life with that color. Um, Every quarter, I do a free workshop where we spend some time going through the art of letting go and the art of manifesting, so that you can attract what you want in your life through journaling, doodling, therapeutic art. And then I'm working on a course called Amplify Your Inner Rainbow, which is a live 4-week course, all intended to help us learn, heal, create, and live with colors around us, and how to use color more intentionally in our lives for just our day-to-day well-being.
That's very cool. And people can just go to your website and sign up for these.
Yep.
And you live in Raleigh, Virginia. So how do people find you locally there?
So I do some local workshops in Raleigh and Holly Springs and Apex, and those are all linked on my website at heathereck.com/workshops, I think.
I was just thinking, geez, I bet this was a year and a half ago. I had a lady who was one of the stars of the movie The Secret, Marie Diamond,
Oh
on.
yeah.
She lives in Monaco. She was on the show. It was really cool. She is a feng shui expert, and I'm not an expert on it, but I'm guessing that colors can integrate or are part of feng shui, which is maybe you know how to explain it better than I do.
Yeah, they are. They're definitely part of feng shui. It's sort of using them in a similar way, thinking about the impact that color has on your, like, psychologically or emotionally or energetically. There are some overlap there, which is really interesting. And I started to kind of dabble in feng shui a little bit, just to kind of see where the colors connected and how to use color intentionally in your home too, which is it's so fascinating to me.
Yeah, and I think, most people are so involved in their daily comings and goings that we don't realize that if you set something here in this particular spot in your place and do a certain color, it has an overall effect, even on usually on a subconscious level that they don't even realize. And many people wonder why maybe sometimes they're angry or frustrated all the time. Maybe if you change some things around in your living space, it can make a big difference.
I 100% agree. It does. Like if you think if you're sitting in a cluttered space, my studio is a little cluttered right now, but it can, your cluttered space can sometimes reflect your internal clutter. So moving things around, shifting things, kind of getting rid of things that no longer serve you is definitely going to impact your well-being, your general sense of how you move through the day.
Yeah, and I agree. Being a wild and crazy bachelor, I got too much clutter here. I need to clean it up. I'll start with all those beer cans over there. No, really, it does, man. I mean, the times I finally do take the initiative to get rid of some junk, I really feel lighter, you know?
Yeah. Yep. I just cleaned off the table in front of me earlier this morning and I felt like, okay, now I have space to create something new. So it really does make space in your mind too.
Well, this has just been fantastic talking to Heather Eck, an amazing color therapist, painter, healer. And what is the best way for people to connect with you if they want to find out more and maybe communicate one-on-one with you?
Yeah, for sure. So my website is heathereck.com. And if you go to heathereck.com/thank you, I have a bunch of freebies on my site for you that you can grab. Everything from a one-on-one color discovery session with me to guides to my monthly calendar club, etc. And I love to connect with people on Instagram, and I'm at Heather Eck Artist.
Absolutely, and I will put those links in the show notes too. And folks, you can look for this show on YouTube. You can listen to it on Apple Podcasts. Heather, it's been an absolute blast talking to you. You're doing amazing work. Thank you for healing the world and all of us.
Thank you so much. I've really loved this conversation, and I can't wait to connect with you again.
This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.